Regulators going, all right, Yakov, how are you tonight? It's good to see you. So you're, what, you're 21 or 22? How old are you? Oh, I lost your, go ahead. Talk again. I got to fix your audio. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm 23. That's on my end.
Oh, okay, great. 23. All right, so you're very articulate. You have a lot of knowledge about what's going on with Israel and the Gaza Strip and stuff like that. You're also conservative. I mean, you're a big fan, I think, of the MAGA movement, right? You kind of like Trump. Not too bad. What's your thoughts on Trump?
Well, currently, I think that Trump has done a incredible amount of work for ending or ramping down various current geopolitical tensions. There was a major war in the Democratic Republic of the Congo between, I believe it was between DRC and Uganda, if I'm not mistaken. And it really doesn't get talked a lot about in Western media, and most Americans don't know anything about it. My knowledge on it is admittedly very limited, but that war was threatening to boil over and cause a lot more harm than needed to be. Also, there was a huge flare-up between India and Pakistan, I believe it was 2 months ago, if I'm not mistaken. Not to mention several hostage deals. One that.
Let's do this a second. Let's do this a second. I'm going to show you this map here because I know that.
Yes.
You have a lot of knowledge. Can we talk a little bit about what's going on with the Gaza Strip? And it
Absolutely.
just kind of funnels over into everything else. But when you look at this map here, okay, this looks like Israel right here. And then the Gaza Strip is just that little area right here. It's really not very big. Actually, Israel doesn't look all that big either, now that
it's all very small and
small country. Okay,
Israel's the size of New Jersey.
Oh, is that right? So it's very small. All right, then you got all this Egypt you got here. Let's just do this for a minute. A lot of people do not understand what's going on in the Gaza Strip right now. We get a little bit of various information, sound bites here and there, but none of us, including myself, can put it together. And I was just hoping we could have maybe a little bit of a timeline understanding of what's going on there. So let me maybe I'll just ask a few questions if you can help fill some of the gaps in before we get to the current day. But
sure.
Israel, I know it goes back thousands of years, but 1948 is when Israel really took over this area or reclaimed this area, correct?
Yeah, 1948 was the year of the Israeli War of Independence. In 1947, the UN came up with a partition plan to split up the British Mandate of Palestine, roughly 50-50, I believe 55-45, with the majority of the land being under Israeli rule. Shortly after that, of course, the Palestinians rejected this, and they understood it as an affront. They believed that they have the right to every square inch of the land, and that even a tablecloth's worth of land going to the Jewish state is complete abomination. So
let me jump in here a minute. For Israel, in 1948, or prior to 1948, Britain was in control of that area, correct?
Yes.
And then in 1948, Britain just said, we're getting the heck out of here because there's just too much going on. Doesn't make sense to us. We're going to hit the road, right? Britain
decided that it's the UN's problem now.
It's the UN's problem. So they got out of there, and then they split the land between Israel and the Palestinians, right? Is that what the British did?
Yeah, they made. So at the time, the term Palestine was used to refer to the entire land, and the general debate was for which land should go to the Jewish state and which land should go to the Arab state, or the Muslim state. But in fact, if you were to say I'm a Palestinian back in 1947, 1946, what you'd really be saying is that I'm a resident of this land. It wouldn't have a connotation that you're an Arab or you're a Jew, like today, where the Palestinians are generally understood to be the Arab population of the land, meanwhile the Israelis are understood to be the Jewish population.
Okay. So let's look at the map again. What year? So in 1948, then some of these Arab countries decided to attack and take over the territory, correct?
Yes. So the Palestinians or the Arabs decided that they would.
And when you say Arabs, you're talking like Egypt, you're talking Jordan, you're talking what countries?
Yes, so all the countries around Israel are Arab countries. Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, even other countries like Iraq or Saudi Arabia are also Arab. But the ones that were involved here, the ones that were involved in this specific war were Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. They aided the Arab movement to try to, through overwhelming force, they outnumbered us, not just by number of countries, but also by sheer number of manpower. The goal was to just flood the country with soldiers until they can drive us all out.
So in 1948, then, what was about a year and a half war, Israel defeated all of those Arab countries that were ganging up on them, right?
More or less. It wasn't a complete victory in that the British mandate was ultimately still split. The Jewish state managed to retain and even expand the border upon the borders that were given to them by the UN. So that's a victory for the Jewish state. Egypt managed to take over the Gaza Strip, and Jordan managed to take over and annex the West Bank. Egypt never actually annexed the Gaza Strip and never gave citizenship to the Arabs living there. But Jordan, on the other hand, actually did annex the West Bank, and in the Jordanian citizenship law, they passed a law that gave citizenship to the country of. They gave Jordanian nationality to all of the Arabs and non-Jews that were living in the West Bank at that time.
Here's a picture of the West Bank again. So it's pretty small. It's a very, very small area. So in 1948 or after that war, whatever, I mean, it gets a little confusing for me, but Egypt actually had control of that, of the Gaza Strip. But since then, and we're going to fast forward now to current times, so now you have living in the Gaza Strip there, Palestinians, correct?
Yes.
And Egypt does not want them in their country, right?
Based on judging by the giant border wall they built between Rafah and the Sinai, that would be a pretty reasonable assumption.
Okay. What seems a little unusual though is because Egypt used to own, or I mean that was their territory, the Gaza Strip for Egypt. Okay. Let's just forward to right now. Let's just fast forward to right now. You've been to Israel many times. What is going on currently? Now, I hear that there are people starving to death in the Gaza Strip. Is that true? What's your thoughts on it? Let's just put it that way.
It's unclear how widespread the famine is, and if there even is a widespread famine. There are reports coming out from Hamas and Hamas-affiliated channels that suggest that there are millions of people that are starving in the Gaza Strip. Now, actually, today, Israel approved aid drops by air from several Arab nations. I'm not sure exactly which ones. I believe Egypt and Jordan participated. I'm not sure about Lebanon. I believe that this is mostly for show to try to win the propaganda war, because really, airdrops are not a very effective way of delivering aid, and they have in the past killed civilians by landing on them, and also have completely missed their targets landing in the Mediterranean Sea. Um, but I, um, if it turns out that these reports are completely accurate, and there are in fact hundreds of thousands of people in the critical stages of famine that haven't eaten in weeks, then of course is an incredibly horrible situation, and I would blame. I believe that the full blame rests on Hamas for continuing to hide behind civilian structures, schools, homes, underground, and refusing to release the hostages and refusing to end the war. The war could end tomorrow if Hamas decided that they were willing to give up the fight.
Okay, one last thought here. Hamas is the political party of the Gaza Strip, right?
It's not a political party in the American sense, in that they don't really have a democracy there. But there has been polling done in the Gaza Strip that suggests that a large minority, I believe, I would have to check, but I believe it's something like 35 or 40% of Gazans would support Hamas in an election. But they don't really function as an American political party in that sense. They function more like a guerrilla group.
A terrorist group, yeah. They're a terrorist group that kind of took over that small strip of land. And the Palestinians say, hey, you want to be the government? You can be our government. It's just such a crazy, crazy situation. I want to get you guys' thoughts in there. Go ahead and, if you have a question for Yakov, go ahead. It is very, very bizarre. We're trying to get to the bottom of it here.
Well, I mean, it is a complex world, and that is arguably one of the most complex parts of the world, bar none. That just the type of conflict, the level of conflict, the fact that we've got sort of this overlay of religious tension, and there is a lot. I firmly believe there's a lot of ginned up animosity, because there are some people that profit from that, and we see, unfortunately, just a massive amount of money that flows into places like Qatar, however you're supposed to pronounce it, and some very, very wealthy power players that profit from the ongoing conflict, and they don't want it to end. But just for perspective, one of the things that I wanted to comment, and just for our audience, one thing that's to me kind of a linchpin to considering the implications of this region. Joe, if you pan out about 40 times, pan way out on that map, you're going to get a huge area of the planet, and I've seen it color coded, showing Israel as you can think of Israel as red, and the area around it, all of those countries, virtually everything you see on the map would be green, representing Muslim nations. And to put that in American context, it's kind of like looking at a map of most of the U.S. and considering from Maine down into Georgia over to Missouri and up in past Illinois, and then consider the area of roughly greater Cleveland representing Israel. The type of conflict that exists when you have that small region having become the target of so many nations. And actually, sorry, that gets a little bit complex, and I'd love Yakov's opinion on this as well. There are a great number of entities and people within neighboring nations who there's great evidence would be very amenable to peaceful relations with Israel. But we have a lot of senior leadership in a lot of the Arab and predominantly Muslim nations who unfortunately derive power and profit from maintaining that agitation. So I think if there were a way to remove them the people that benefit from the fight, from the ongoing conflict, there are, I think, clear indications that Israel would probably be recognized as a nation, and a lot of that tension would evaporate and disappear. And in particular, what we now call Palestine or the Gaza Strip, I think a lot of that would evaporate if there weren't the money and power that comes out of having Israel, the Jewish state, I'm air quoting that, Israel, the Jewish state, for everybody to point at and focus energy, weapons, military, and attention on. Those are my thoughts.
Hang on a second. I'm going to bring in Mikhail. Mikhail, if you want to turn your camera, your cell phone side landscape, we'll get you a bigger
There he is.
picture.
Hey, Mikhail.
Hello.
Mikhail's
I guess it
sideways.
didn't work. Sorry about that. I thought it would work. Usually it works, but now you just get me dizzy. Ah!
Uh-oh. Not working.
All right, that's not working. That's okay. That's fine. So we got Mikhail here. So, Mikhail, what? I know you're. Well, first of all, where are you at? Where are you at there? You're out and about somewhere.
Yeah, hang on a second. So, can you hear me?
I hear you, but you froze up. But I can hear you. Go ahead.
We can hear you.
There you
Hang
go.
on a second. I'm trying to iOS. Let me just tell you. Anyway, so there's a different protest here. Actually, it's more like an awareness rally of Save the Druze. So a bunch of things that in select news it got some play where some of the Islamists are more or less trying to kill all the Druze. Druze are not really Muslims, separate religion. They don't take converts. There's about 1 million of them in Israel and Syria. And the new Al-Qaeda-ish regime in Syria tried to kill them. Israel came in, basically kind of put a pause on most of it.
But so you're at some kind of a protest out there, Beechwood area, maybe University Heights, something like that. All right, let me ask you a question here. We have Yaakov is with us here today. Yaakov, he's from Cleveland Heights.
Hi.
He's been to Israel multiple times. I know, Mikhail, you've been to Israel just recently, from what I understand.
Yeah, during the war.
Sorry, so we got onto the subject here. I just thought maybe you could throw 2 cents in if you'd like. We're talking about the Gaza Strip, okay?
Yeah.
We're trying to understand it. Yaakov's been giving us some history of it. What is going on right now in the Gaza Strip?
Right now, the Israeli Defense Forces brass is taking its sweet time, let's just put it that way. The political leadership, the military leadership is a little too sclerotic. It's taking way too much time. Trump was right in the last 24 hours to basically publicly call this out. Finish the job. You're not getting any credit for doing some stupid above and beyond sort of humanitarian steps. You're not helping the situation. Any so-called humanitarian aid that's distributed through the UN is effectively resupplying Hamas.
Because the humanitarian aid is got weaponry with it.
No. Because the UN humanitarian aid is all Hamas. Because they have Hamas people in UN employment position. The UN is very toxic. Anybody that says get US out of the UN is probably correct. So the UN administered aid is all resupplying Hamas. They insist on the trucks not being inspected so they can get the ammunition and whatever else and the fuel. So it's not food. Israel was different under Trump. Israel started its own network of distribution of food. And it suddenly started the ball moving in the right direction. Very beginning steps. Suddenly you have militia not aligned with Hamas. Small time, a couple of hundred armed people here, a couple of hundred armed people there, not under control of Hamas, distributing food that Hamas does not get control over. And now you have the beginning of something that can actually work. Finally, a year and a half plus into it, we have contours of some kind of a solution. Generally, if IDF finally moves in, because a whole ton of footage is being spent on leveled and rubble in Gaza, that's way less than half of Gaza. A whole ton of Gaza is very much untouched by the war. They have ice cream shops, they have dessert shops, they have this and that and the other. They need to figure out how to finish the job, like Trump
Okay,
said.
quick question then. Quick question so I can understand. Then I want to get back to Yakov here for a few minutes. What does finish the job exactly mean?
So, the finish the job is Hamas is barricading themselves, blending with the civilians, and you have to do what's necessary. Go in. You don't raid like during the Biden years. They would raid the area, leave, and then Hamas comes back and like nothing ever happened. No. You level the buildings. You make sure that the tanks and other equipment can go through, not in the narrow streets. You basically move the population into a tent area elsewhere. Then you dismantle the Israeli bureaucracy that's got like only 600 of them leaving to other countries. They found some countries in Africa and elsewhere to take the people. A whole bunch of people in Gaza aren't exactly patriotic. They don't have history of Palestinian state. A whole lot of them have Egyptian passports from pre-67 and whatever else. So they're happy to go elsewhere. Just take them. So there's places that will take them. Israeli bureaucracy needs to get out of this way, help them out. Once you move the population away from the built-up area, Hamas is not able to put together traps for Israeli defense forces with temperature, with thermal controls of the drones. IDF can much more easily wage war against Hamas. Yeah, sure, they'll go underground, but it's half the battle is won when the built-up areas are not there. So you have to finish the job. Every time IDF cranks up, Israeli Defense Forces cranks up the pressure, Hamas runs to Qatar to try to get the negotiations going again. They'll throw in better terms. They'll throw in some hostages. So the point is, you put the pressure full scale. None of this tickling around the edges, some kind of crazy humanitarian concerns for which they obviously don't get any credit. Look at what France is doing. You're not getting any credit for doing some stupid humanitarian things. Look, it's war. It's ugly. Certain ugly things happen. Sometimes you end up dinging on the side a little bit of a church. Listen, it's a war. Things happen.
Gotcha.
So,
Mikhail, all right. Thanks for that update. Thank you very much.
Listen, Joe, I got to get back to the things. I'm collecting signatures for property tax, local
Great.
School board candidates, whatever else. But thank you for having me on your show. I'll
pleasure is ours. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mikhail.
Take care,
Thank you, Mikhail.
Bye-bye.
Yakov, I just got a couple of minutes here. So, is that the case then, in your opinion? Do they have to say, let's get the job done already, or is something else you want to say in closing about the whole incident? Go ahead.
Yeah, so what he said about the UN, I wanted to add a little bit that there was a huge scandal where it was uncovered that at UNRWA, I think it's pronounced, the UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Works Agency, which is a agency for Palestinian refugees and for supporting them and standing up for this, that. It was shown very clearly that several dozen staff members from this organization actually partook in October 7th. They stormed the border, went into various Israeli border communities, and raped and killed and did all these horrible things that just like all the other Hamas terrorists were doing on October the 7th. And it took over a year before anything was said about it, before these people were found out and fired by the United Nations. I personally believe that although the United Nations as a whole is, at least it was probably founded in good intentions. There's a saying that the pathway to Gehenna is paved with the pathway to the opposite of heaven is paved with good intentions. I don't think that the UN as it stands today stands for the same values that it used to back in back in, let's say, the 1940s or 30s. And although I wouldn't go as far as to say that the United States should leave the United Nations, there should be a lot of pressure put on the United Nations to control its various agencies and to hold people actually accountable for what they've done. Now, about finishing the job in Gaza, I believe that first of all, on October 7th, what made me angriest was that we had no control. This territory was completely controlled by terrorists, and the rule of law simply didn't exist, and there was nothing we can do about it. The only recourse we have is to invade and take out these lawless, for lack of a better word, these lawless barbarians. And in our efforts in doing so, they have entrenched themselves so deep and used every dirty trick in the book in order to make that as difficult as possible. And ultimately, I think that Israel being charitable to them and trying to save civilians in every single scenario possible, even when it means endangering the lives of Israeli soldiers or protecting terrorists, I think that it goes a little bit too far. Now, if it were up to me, how I would handle the war, I would personally, currently Israel has managed to take over a fairly large area. Currently they control about 65% of the Gaza Strip. That's more than enough land for a continuous humanitarian zone. If we wanted to, using the areas that are under operational control, Israel could totally clear out a bunch of rubble, build a tent city that can house the vast majority of the 2 million population of Gaza, and for the rest of the Strip, just go in and raze it completely to the ground, destroy every single tunnel, destroy everything, destroy every single terrorist hideout, and kill every last terrorist. And once that's done, I don't know if it's worth investing to rebuild Gaza. It's a very expensive project, but you can allow people to move back once there's no longer security hazard. Just because these people have terrorist sympathies, at least 35% of them, doesn't mean that you can't rehabilitate the population. But I got you.
So I guess what we would say here in closing is that, you've got to do something to eliminate Hamas. Also, the starvation. A lot of the supplies and that are coming in, they're coming in with food and weaponry for Hamas. Yes. That's another issue that's not being talked about enough. All right, Yaakov, I got to get to my next guest. I want to thank you very much for everything you do and being so up on this. We got to have you on again. We want young people on this show, so I really appreciate you taking the time tonight. Thank you very much, okay?
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yaakov.
Yeah, very good. All right. I'm going to see if our next guest is with us. Judge, are you out there?
I'm there. How are you?
Oh, hold it a second here. Let's get you.